Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's quite rare that a game feels like it has negative hype surrounding it. It's even rarer when the game is backed by a legendary studio like Marathon is with Bungie. Bungie's name is synonymous with success. From the Halo games, which put their studio on the map in the 2000s, to the Destiny franchise, which was so successful that Sony would go on to pay $3.6 billion to acquire the studio in 2022. But before Halo and Destiny, Bungie made the Marathon trilogy, a first person shooter much in the vein of Doom or Wolfenstein. I've never really played the game since when the first one came out. I was 10 months old and more interested in things like drooling on myself or staring at a mobile. So here is a description of the storyline directly from the most trustworthy site in the world, Wikipedia. Hey, at least it's not ChatGPT. Quote, Marathon primarily takes place in 2794 aboard the UESC Marathon, a large Earth colony ship constructed from the Martian moon Deimos. The Marathon's mission is to travel to Tau Ceti system and build a colony on its fourth planet. The player's character is an unnamed security officer assigned to the Marathon. The narrative is presented to the player using messages on computer terminals scattered throughout the game's levels. These messages include crew logs, historical documents, and other records, but principally include conversations that the player character has with three artificial intelligence, or AIs, that run the UESC Marathon: Layla, Duraldal, and Tycho. The game also featured a deathmatch multiplayer game mode, which was so good that it won the Macworld Game Hall of Fame for Best Network Game in 1995. The reception of the game was pretty decent, with Mac user giving it a 5 out of 5 and All Game giving it a 4 out of 5. It would go on to have two sequels and a remake of the second game, Marathon Durandal, which came to Xbox Arcade in 2007. IGN gave that game a 7.4. If you weren't too familiar with the games for this video, don't worry. It was stuck on Mac until recently, and as such didn't have as much of a cultural impact as games like Doom, which it was trying to compete with. So this brings us to present day. When Bungie was done with Destiny, they turned their attention to revamping Marathon and bringing this long dormant series to a new audience. I honestly think if they decided to make a more modern remake of the original game with a story mode and multiplayer, this had a chance to succeed. I love Halo, and while I never really got into Destiny, I recognize that it's an extremely popular franchise. Unfortunately, that isn't the direction that Bungie went in. In May of 2023, we got our first trailer for the game. It showed off a fairly unique art style and presented an interesting concept. You would play as a cybernetic mercenary on a planet that saw 30,000 people disappear without a trace. You would be tasked with hunting down mysterious artifacts on the planet, which sounds like a great setting for a game. However, the excitement was tempered when it was revealed that this would be an extraction shooter. The genre made famous by Escape from Tarkov appeals to a very specific subset of gamers, people who love the brutal and unforgiving gameplay that Tarkov provides, where you're pitted against other players to collect gear. When the gameplay trailer was revealed, many people were left unimpressed. This, coupled with the lackluster reception to the closed alpha, put Bungie on the back foot. It seems that more experienced extraction shooters found Marathon too easy, while players who were less familiar with the style of game found it too difficult. This meant that no one was really happy with the game, despite Bungie trying to appeal to both groups. Bungie was further battered when Arc Raiders had a playtest and got a much more positive reception from players. It became clear that Embark Studios' game would be the more anticipated extraction shooter. Finally, a knockout blow was leveled on Marathon when an artist who goes by Anti-Real pointed out that Bungie had straight up stolen her artwork and used it in the Marathon Alpha. One especially damning piece of evidence was Anti-Real's name not being fully removed from one of the pieces that was used in the game. On Twitter, Anti-Real said, quote, Bungie is of course not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I've refined the last decade, but clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over the game without pay or attribution. Bungie's response left much to be desired, as he blamed it on a, quote, former Bungie artist who added the texture sheet and wasn't supposed to make it into the alpha. See, I don't know if Bungie is being straight up here or if they're lying, but this isn't the first time they've been accused of stealing artwork, and in every case, it's been blamed on either freelancers, contractors, or in this case, a former employee. It's never anyone vital to the studio, yet it keeps happening. So we can all draw our own conclusions from that. Unfortunately for Marathon, they had scheduled a live stream well before everything broke, and they decided to go ahead with it, as art director Joseph Cross looks like he would rather be anywhere else during it, which, that's fair. During the live stream, the chat was pretty brutal. And one of the comments I saw was calling Marathon Art Raiders in reference to Arc Raiders. And it was in that moment that I knew this game was going to be dead on arrival. It will forever be known as the game that stole artwork. Not to mention, the $40 price tag is lower than many games coming out these days, but just high enough for prospective players to most likely pass on the game. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll delay the game and go back to the drawing board, come back with a new version of the game that will appeal to more players. But right now, it just feels like this is a game that's going to underperform. And it's even more ironic given that Bungie was the team that Sony used to advise other studios on their multiplayer efforts, which resulted in The Last of Us Factions being canceled, which honestly I'm still kind of bitter about. So what do you think? Does Marathon have a chance to succeed? Are you aligned with my thinking in believing that it's dead on arrival? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you like it, please subscribe. We have video essays, game reviews, that kind of stuff coming out every single week here on the channel. And we also have a bunch of other channels, including Those Fake Nerds, which is video game and pop culture news, as well as Weird Sports, which is sports news, and Better Radio, which hosts all of our podcasts. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.